have that backbone or you don't have that general support, it does feel a bit kind of...
You can feel very isolated, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I think one of the questions we were sent in was, what was it? Imaan, do you have the question?
Oh yeah, I have the question. Okay, so the question was, is parental support actually that important for a child, or can they get through life without that type of support?
So I think Omema more or less answered that quite a bit, but if we go from a more psychological perspective, if we look at the various types of evidence that have been gathered by multiple psychological tests that have been conducted throughout the decades or so, it does show us that parental support is paramount to the healthy development of a child's personal, social, emotional and educational development.
I think that goes without saying really that if we do have that support from our parents, then we can go further than if we don't have the support.
In what aspects though?
I mean, in most really, and academically and emotionally, it's just easier having the support from
I feel like
parents.
it does affect you on your kind of general behaviour when maybe your parents are more on your case and they're more kind of there and they pay attention to what you're doing. You're more likely to maybe not stray and do something that might be morally wrong because you have that kind of trust to confide in them. But then if they don't, you might be more likely to do something and not really care how they're going to react because you wouldn't tell them anyways.
Yeah, and I think that if parents say they tell you, maybe to you you might think that they're telling you what to do, but at the end of the day they just want to help you and they don't have to tell you, because at the end of the day they're just telling you.
Yeah, it's not always like
because they care.
It's not always like, oh, you're wrong. Oh, I don't like how you're doing this. It's not always persistent, like they're trying to put you down, because that does happen. But it's not always, you're not doing this right. What's wrong with you? Like, I get that.
Yeah, I do want to say, I think a lot of the time when people hear the term parental support, they tend to associate it with a discipline and purely discipline of, having parental support means you have your parents there telling you, don't do this, do that, and that's more or less all that you need.
Even though it does feel like it in the moment, in the end they do have your best interest, even though it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's important to highlight is, the importance of having parents that are sensitive to a child's emotional needs and just their own well-being. Again, coming off from a psychological perspective, there are lots of psychologists, such as John Bowlby, for instance. I'm not sure, by the way, if it's Bowlby or Bowlby. I'm a bit worried about pronouncing his surname there. But he's credensed that, when a child does feel that love, care and affection from their parents or even any other individuals who play that significant role in their lives, they're much more likely to be able to develop that resilience to handle any difficulties or challenges that may arise in their life throughout their progression to adulthood, and even progressing further beyond that.
Oh yeah, someone commented, I love the show, by the way.
Oh,
so
really?
thank you.
It's because I'm here. Don't.
Thank you so much.
God.
But yeah.
No, it's not. But sorry, where were we?
On Lina's note, I do agree. I think that sorry, I can't talk. The development of secure relationships, like you mentioned, does help the child establish maybe self-love and stuff like that.
Just their own sense of self-worth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely. I think... I'm sorry, she's been giggling all when we were rehearsing through set. She keeps giggling and breaking into this fit. So
someone's looking at me from behind.
Oh,
anyway,
honestly.
No, I do actually agree with that, because I feel like when you when you have that kind of positive mindset, you're more likely to respond to things positively, and when you feel like somebody else is kind of reciprocating with you on them kind of terms, you're more likely to also negotiate with them, and you're just generally going to be more happy with how you approach different situations.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, I think when we look at things from a wider perspective, or let's say just for us as teens, that parental support during our education, more often than not, if it's not there, then it can tend to cause us to, become deterred from any dreams we may have had or goals we may have been otherwise capable of reaching. Because I think when you don't feel like you have that support from your parents and you don't have that encouragement, it can really affect your educational and academic journey. And I think that's something that's really important to highlight, because that sense of discouragement, especially when it comes from your parents, it definitely can really affect you, and it tends to linger a lot more.
Yeah, I feel like it's important for you to feel validated and to feel that someone cares about you and that you have that kind of ability to depend on somebody. And I feel like as well, kind of, when you fall out with friends, fair enough, like that could be it. There could be nothing after that. You know, you fall out with them and you're never going to see them again. But with your parents, you may fall out with them and then be annoyed at them for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but you get over it in the end because they're kind of that support group which will follow you around. I mean, if they don't like die, but you know that will follow you around.
Morbid.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Morbid.
I do agree with that up to some extent. I mean, but I think that children and teens do need that support emotionally, academically, physically, and all the Lee words. So I mean, yeah.
No, I think it also helps them, you know, in terms of in the long term, children who have those parents who are very involved in their academic life, they tend to achieve higher grades or even be more socially competent. And going off that point, actually, I think this links in really well with a question we had. And what was the question?
Oh, I've got it
Can you
here.
just
Hold
pull
on.
that second one up?
Wait, was it all the effects of deprivation irreversible? That one.
I think that was.
No, I think it was.
Can we just see the
is-
question, please?
Is there kind of like
How substantially can our childhood attachments influence later adult relationships? And what was the second one?
is there an expiration
How
date?
long does it take for a childhood relationship to break? So what would you think, Imaan?
I mean, I think, like, I'm not really sure. Obviously, it does have consequences and downsides, but does it really have an expiration date, so you call it?
I mean, I think it actually does have an expiration date. Sorry, what was that? Mike. Oh, sorry, just 1 second.
It always tends to cause
It's always my
issues, so
mic
it's
that causes the
just-
problems, yeah. Sorry, just like that. Yeah. Okay, so there is actually an expiration date, so to speak. And again, I want to go from a psychological perspective, and that's, you know, I mentioned him earlier and I'll mention him again. There was John Bowlby, and he believed that after numerous accounts of research that he had conducted, he came to the realization that it's the first 3 years of life that is the very critical period of time for that bond of attachment to develop between infant and their parents, or in this case, their primary caregiver. So, if that attachment isn't created in the first 3 years of life, then it may not develop at all. And as a result, if you aren't able to develop that very pivotal relationship in the first 3 years of life, then it will affect you going on the long term, because if you're not used to how to create that relationship, then how are you going to be able to develop things with other people in the future?
But the thing is, if that doesn't develop, it's, you know, it's hard for you to kind of form that when you're older, and you may not have that kind of ability to form that relationship with other people, and I feel like that can be quite detrimental to a child's social needs or emotional needs, because when you grow up, it's hard for you to just learn that, because you don't really tend to learn it. There's not really a textbook for it. You just
Yeah, no,
Go
it
with it.
definitely
Yeah.
couldn't. I think, again, if we look at Bowlby's internal working model, which was something he created after doing this research on, actually the question more or less sums up the research he did, because he wanted to also see, you know, how do our childhood relationships influence our adult relationships? And what he developed was a study that suggests, you know, for secure attachments to form, it's necessary for that child to be able to develop that with their primary caregiver first. And if they're able to develop that with their initial primary caregiver, then in the future they will be able to develop very secure and very long-lasting relationships.
come on. What are you laughing at?
There's just a few signals I'm not
I'm
really
seeing so many
understanding.
hands behind the camera, it's completely confusing.
Hold
me.
on, my mic as well.
I'm the
No,
only
just-
one
it's all our-
who
all
doesn't
of our
cause
mics okay?
problems. No,
Just check.
mine's okay. Yours
Okay.
aren't
Is mine
okay.
okay?
Because
That was
it's
so
just-
confusing, the amount of hands that were waving.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now you mention it, I'm sure that there was rare but cases of people getting, maybe you could say disorders, is it, from not having that relationship with the
What
parents?
disorder?
I'm not really sure what it's called.
You were meant, yeah, she was meant to say this, but of course she
Okay.
couldn't remember. It's called, what's it called? It's called RAD, I think, yeah.
What does that stand for? I don't think anyone knows what that stands for.
Reactive attachment disorder, and I feel, what?
Reactive attachment.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
right.
I've just,
So, yeah, the reactive
how do you know what it's
attachment
about?
disorder, Because, by the way, this is obviously research prior. She's just pretending she suddenly knew that. But
Literally.
reactive attachment disorder definitely does have some very serious side effects and symptoms. Some of these can be the inability to socialize and form relationships.
Wait, Lina, we were talking about this. You just
You
completely
passed it on
took
to me,
over.
I
didn't
know, right? Wait,
Okay,
wait.
go on.
I did it.
You
just wanted
couldn't
to say it.
remember your own
Yeah, you couldn't
research.
remember
Is that
it.
my
You can't
fault?
say anything
No, it
about
isn't.
Okay, go on then. Explain about
Me?
it. Yeah.
No, you might as well carry on if you'd started.
Well, the only other symptoms are the poor development of social relationships, as I already stated, dishonesty, involvement in crime, and the inability to give or receive affection.
I feel like that kind of, it does. Sorry.
Carry on.
I feel like that kind of goes to show. Does anybody want to carry on? Right, okay. It goes to show. So much is going wrong.
Okay.
Okay. It goes to show how important it is for people to develop that kind of bond from an early stage, and because if you don't, and when it comes down to it, as individuals, and when you're deprived of that, there can be long-term consequences. And like I said before, you don't just learn it, and you may grow up to maybe you can't reach that kind of, there's a line where you can't cross it because you don't know how to respond to things.
No, that's true. And I think going off on that note as well, another thing I do want to speak about is, the importance of having that security in your early relationships. Because if we aren't going to have that, then, as we've already stressed and repeated ourselves quite a lot of times, but it is all down to the fact that our initial relationships will be our root foundations for when we're trying to develop other relationships in the future. And this goes on with the third question. If you want to.
So the third question was, are the effects of deprivation irreversible?
Right, so personally, I think that Omema should take the stage for this one because of our little blender earlier.
Of course, they tend to put the burden on me because they just didn't do the work for it. Anyways, but I'm gonna assume that the question is talking about kind of deprivation and attachment and how that kind of viewpoint. But obviously there are after effects which could be long lasting and they can be permanent, but there are also cases where they can be reversible and people have grown from it, because you can't say that, oh, if you don't have this you're never going to grow from it, you're never going to get any better from it, because I don't think it's right to just pinpoint it as that.
What cases are you referring to?
It was that there was a case where it was like they saw people that grew up with that deprivation, I think up to the age of 3, but then later on when they were moved, they grew up in orphanages, that's why.
Oh, so that's how they have it, okay.
But later on when they moved to kind of schools that were more, that they had more of a kind of one-to-one care and they felt that they were more accepted and more taken care of, that's when the IQ scores went up.
So I think that does show us that, the deprivation of, what was it? Deprivation of
Attachment.
Yeah, and not having that bond, the effects.
Were you not listening to me?
Honestly, I wasn't really. But that, I think the deprivation of that bond, the effects don't always end up being long-lasting, as Omema stated, because in that situation, to sum it up if anyone was a little confused, it's about the children who had been raised in an orphanage, and as a result of that, they didn't have that the fundamental bonds they were supposed to establish with their primary caregivers initially. However, when they had moved to schools and they were put in that education system where they were able to have access to that one-to-one care, their IQ scores went up, they were able to become more socially competent, and they had more of that social interaction, which led to their own personal development.
I think what both Omema and Lina said, it just shows how, like, how do you say that word?
How severe it can be
Detrimental.
if you're not.
Yeah, and how big the consequences can be if you don't have that type of attachment and relationship with your parents.
No, it definitely can, and I'm actually not sure what time we're on right now, but can we? Okay, so I think we have 10 minutes left now, so before we wrap up, I wanted to just ask a couple of questions to you both. Now,
What questions?
by the way, I'm putting them on the spot.
Yeah, I haven't
I'm
clue
a
what
bit
she's
scared.
about to say.
But Omema, are there any instances where you've ever felt in a particular situation where you wished you had that type of parental support in another aspect.
Oh yeah, me and my mum, we argue all the time. Oh my god, my mum is so stubborn. I hope,
Wow.
I didn't
I hope
expect
she's
that
not
one.
watching this. But no, definitely, like, there are them kind of times where you don't see why they say certain things and you don't understand why they're being so harsh, and you're just like, what the heck, like, just let me have my time, just stop being so mean to me. But
What?
later on, my sister's in the background, so she's laughing because I'm the favourite child.
I think it's the other way around.
I think
you
Omema
know.
might be watching this.
But no, yeah, she is the favourite child, isn't she? But it does happen where we don't come to terms on things and we don't agree with things, and personally I think I am right sometimes and she's not, but in the end of the day she has the authority. In the end of the day she is my mum, so I can't do anything about that one. But yeah, you just have to kind of, when you look back at it, you realise why they did the things that they did.
I'm actually not sure what she was trying to say with that answer at all.
Yeah, I don't know what I said either. I think all I got out was that it's not my mum, it's just on a different wavelength. Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, what I wanted to say is I wanted to share my own experience actually, because in terms of the whole requirement of support throughout the academic aspects of your life, personally I've been very conflicted with what career path I wanted to pursue, and for me,
Same, bro, same.
yeah, for me, if I had not had that support that I was able to receive from my parents and actually from my siblings as well, then I don't actually know where I'd be standing at this point, because I wasn't sure what A levels
You're not
I wanted to
standing,
do.
you're sitting down.
Metaphorical. But I'm trying to be very serious, because by the way, they're all behind the cameras right now.
That's
so
all
I'm
the
trying to be-
laughing is, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say was, if I didn't have that support, then I know I would have been very lost, and I wouldn't have known
You
what
still
paths
are.
I wanted to pursue, what path I wanted to pursue, what A levels I wanted to take, because even that, Omema and I, we mentioned that in the last show actually, for our A levels and our choices, we were so confused, and, what are we going to pick?
Still have no
My
clue.
name is always
Yeah,
coming.
she's actually
I
so
still don't
confused.
know. I'm
But,
failing maths.
I do want
it's
to
so
stress
sad.
that I know how much it helped me to have that support from my parents and my siblings and my family in general. So I can understand and I can firsthand vouch for just how imperative it is for us as teens to have that support. So it's definitely very important, and I do think without that, it will be very difficult to kind of navigate your own way through life as you're growing up, because in these times we do get very stressed and very confused on what we want to kind of achieve. So
Not
having
even
that
that, they've
guidance,
experienced it as well, so they know why you may feel that kind of way.
exactly, and just that moral support and emotional support, and then the practical support, it is definitely very important. So shout out to my parents and my siblings for that. Thank you for all your help. Needed that.
Oh, okay,
But,
carry on.
I think we are reaching the end of time now, but no, 7
You
minutes.
didn't even let
Come on,
Imaan
it's your
go.
turn to
You
say-
just
Oh,
cut her
no.
off. That is
I
so
was
sad.
hoping-
Go on.
Wait, what's your question? Are you giving me a
No,
question?
you share a story, an experience that relates to
Story.
our topic today.
Okay. My mum's watching, so
Yeah, good luck with that one.
I think you should ask me a question. Or go back to me.
Or maybe ask her a question.
Oh, God.
I don't know what question to ask. Wait, I have no
I think you can
clue.
hear the laughing behind the set. I'm really confused because
Just answer the same question.
Wait, you didn't even answer the question. What was
I
it?
didn't. I basically. Oh, okay, maybe I didn't.
I'm really sorry for this very uncoordinated episode. We've all very unwisely decided to have bowls full of ice cream and milkshakes and everything.
I'm
So it's
so
still very
tired.
high on that sugar.
It's like
very
food
high. We're
coma.
trying to be composed, but it's really not working, as you can see. So that's not going very well. But someone say something.
What are you looking at me for? I just don't get it. Imaan, answer the question. When have you felt supported from your parents? If your mum's
There's just too
watching
many
this, do
cases,
you know-
don't worry. Let me think of one. Of many.
Should we just
I mean, like when obviously I've just chosen my options, sorry, and obviously I didn't know what to pick, or I had to choose between a few. So I think then I did have support from my parents and suggestions of what would be best for me.
My mum cooks for me. That's great as well. I want lasagna right now. I've been craving it for a week and I haven't made it. Anyways,
Oh, dear.
so I think we're going to wrap it up now. But from what we've what we're trying to say from the
message we were
episode.
trying to, honestly, no more ice cream before shows ever. That was the most
That was Lina's idea, by the way.
You have every single day
Yeah, she was
that
my
we've
idea,
met
I'm
up this
sorry.
week. I want ice cream. Can we get sundaes? I'm so hungry. Let's not
No,
eat
that's
tomorrow
because
though.
every
We get
time- no.
distracted. Okay, let's
No.
get ice cream today as well.
It's because every time we meet up to rehearse, I always go like, I'll be doing all my research and whatever beforehand, and then prior to our meetup, I don't really eat very much, so I won't have lunch sometimes, so I'll just go earlier. So that when I go,
And she'll go. She'll be like, "You guys get too distracted.
You should have eaten when you were at
You should have eaten at home."
no, but I'm quick when I eat and stuff.
Oh,
Then what?
how are you?
What?
Really?
She is the slowest. I didn't know what she's on about. But
Anyways,
Okay.
the moral of this show today, for this week, whatever you may call it, is that you have to meet your parents both ways. Not one person has to put in all the effort, not the other one. You both have to put in the effort. Stop being so mean to your parents. What? Did we not speak about that? I thought we were talking about that.
Let's talk about it.
she is lost. As
What
you
I'm
can
trying to
see.
say is, like, you know
No,
how...
that's a good point, actually.
No, I mean, you know how now your parents could be present and they could put their foot in with everything, but when you get home or stuff from school or whatever it is, you just sit on your phone all day, you sit on the TV all day, and you don't actually communicate with them. Imaan's laughing because that's what she does, but you have to actually kind of, if you do have that moral support, don't take it for granted, because I feel like a lot of people tend to do that.
Yeah, one thing I want to add on to that is, we as children and as teens, Imaan as a child, we do need to make that effort with our parents, because it's not fair to expect, to have that relationship with them if it's a one-way road. You can't. My mum is really nodding behind the camera. She's like, yes, you go, keep going. It's very important for us to meet them halfway.
That's literally what I said, and you just had to go at me for saying, oh my god.
Oh, this is
Carry on.
It's no, I'm reiterating the importance,
yeah.
emphasizing again. But we do need 4 minutes, okay?
What are we going to waffle for 4 minutes? I'm sorry.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is probably not upload this at this time.
Because it's just...
It's live. We're not going to do them live from now on, we'll just pre-record them and
Yeah.
post them. Right, but
Editing
we
would
do-
be great, thank
we
you.
do need to wrap up now, but we hope that this episode, through its many blunders and mix-ups and off-topic rants, has stressed at least a little bit about the importance of that parental support and how we do need that, because all, fun and jokes aside, the effects, if you don't have that, can be very detrimental, and it definitely can affect us in so many different ways, in various different aspects. And overall, if you're not able to have your parents by your side, and you're not able to have that support, the very root problems of that can go extremely deep.
And how do you expect to have a relationship with other people if you can't have it from... Since you've... Yeah.
So parents and children alike both need to make that effort and always be, always work to help each other and understand each other.
That's
But,
so inspirational.
I know.
We were trying to be serious as well, but she just had to come in.
But,
Sorry, I'm just getting
yeah.
emotional.
uh,
Anyways, so please send in suggestions for next week, because we have no clue what we're doing next week. Thank you to make our jobs easier, and I think...
we hope you join us next Wednesday.
No.
We need you to join us next Wednesday. Thank you very much. At 7 p.m.
Normally we don't just laugh the whole time, but
It's usually very good.
It's a
But
bad
honestly, I
day.
blame the ice cream. It's completely the ice cream.
Anyways, bye,
Have a good day,
loves.
evening, and we hope to see you next
It's
time.
not the day. Have a good evening. Yeah, have a good night.
Goodbye.
Bye.